free fun for everyone. Sold separately.
Leonardo, the katana blade. My God.
Attack the evil Inhumanoid, forcing him back into the earth.
Hey, the name's Boglins. You sold separately.
We battle our He-Man and Skeletor each sold separately. You put them out together.
Turn them into the light, and they change into even more powerful.
Battle against Lion-O and the new Thundercat ally.
Welcome to the final episode in this chunk of episodes for That New Toy Smell 2020. I, of course, am your host, Dirt, along with my co-host...
Me.
Smooth. And today, of course, we are talking about the greatest Masters of the Universe figures from all lines, from all time periods, as voted on by you guys. And so what we've done, we had a poll in the Facebook group, we had messages on Twitter, we had comments on the videos, I don't know, I was thinking we got more from somewhere else.
Did you get emails?
No, I didn't really get any emails about it. But anyway, so we took the comments, we took the tweets, we took the poll numbers. There are Facebook comments, people commented on other videos on Facebook instead of just going to the poll and voting, but whatever. So anyway, took all of that and mushed it all together and made the list. So this is decided on by you guys of the top 10 greatest Masters of the Universe figures. And I have to say, there's a couple things that surprised me. One, I thought classics would be better represented in this list, and it's not. It's mostly a list of vintage figures with a few others peppered in, which I thought was interesting. But I guess maybe it makes sense a little bit, considering years ago when we had the whole crew of everybody doing stuff like 10 years ago. A couple of the guys were really focused on the latest figures and the classics and reviewing like the newest stuff as it came out. Whereas since they have moved on, my focus has always been more on the vintage. I like the 5.5 style. That's always been the style I enjoyed. So maybe more of those viewers have stuck with the channel, whereas the guys who are worried about reviews of the latest, greatest stuff have moved on to other venues, perhaps. I don't know. But it was one of those things where I was surprised by what figures appeared from some of the other, from at least one of the other lines. But we'll get to that in a little bit. So, anyway, let's get started here. This is going to be number 10. This is, as voted on by you, Modulok. And so what we're going to do here, since you're unfamiliar with a lot of these characters, I've put together some video clips, we've got some photos, and in some cases, when I can find them, classic commercials that show off these figures. So we're going to take a look at a classic commercial for Modulok so that you can see what Modulok is about.
Right.
How can you alone defeat He-Man? Because, Hordak, I am
Modulok.
an evil horde all by myself with 1,000 battling bodies.
Modulok.
Now let's roll together, Modulok. I'm gonna take you apart.
Modulok with 22 changeable parts. Each from the evil horde and Masters of the Universe. Other figures each sold separately. From Mattel.
Alright, so there you go. Modulok was basically a build-your-own figure. And as a matter of fact, I have right here, here is, it's seen better days, but here's the box.
Where's the toy?
Now, hold on a minute. The toy's inside. But I got one of these on a Christmas trip. We left and went down to Disney World.
Did we?
When I was a kid.
Oh, okay.
Grandma and Grandpa and Kim and I, we went down, we met up with Grandpa Turner down at Disney World in Florida. So Christmas morning, we were actually at Walt Disney World, and I opened this up. This had just come out, and so this was my Christmas gift there. And I love this thing. I played with it. Back in those days, you didn't have to have seat belts in the back. We had a station wagon, so I could lay down in the back of the station wagon, and I would just lay in the back there and play with toys while we were driving.
That's dangerous.
It was awesome, is what it was. So anyway, now this is not the original one. My original one, of course, is long gone, but I got this replacement a few years ago. But inside, we've got the pieces of Modulok and the little book there.
What are you taking a look at first?
Yeah, I want you to take a look at, well, you don't really have to care about the paperwork,
All right.
but I know you like figures. Now, this is not an exact set. This is just a bunch of the pieces here.
All right. Thank goodness you can attach the legs to the arms. That's a good sign.
But I know that you like being able to pop figures apart and put them back together. I was happy to see it was on the list. I kind of hoped this would be higher up on the list. I was kind of surprised this came in at number 10, you know, considering some of the other figures, but whatever. We got the mini comic here. He is part of the Evil Horde from Hordak. Although, looks different in the comic, of course. The artwork is not exactly there, but the instructions I always thought were interesting. One of the combinations that they show is to put a tail where the head goes.
I just did that.
Yeah. Oh, well, there you go.
And the piece is gone forever.
And yeah. So anyway,
Where are his legs, though? Like, where's the part that the legs go onto?
they go onto one like this. So there's one like that, or there was another one, or one like this, where you can put like the tail on it. If you want to have multiple legs. So you could make a version that looked more like a regular dude with just a chest and 2 legs and 2
Boring.
arms and a head, or whatever. And then with a connector piece like this, you could have 2 heads on at one time, or 2 arms, or 2 legs in one spot. There was also another figure that was similar called Multibot, which came out, and it was supposed to be a creation of. You got to just kind of push hard; it'll pop.
Really?
Yeah. It's tough sometimes. And Multibot was the same idea. Multibot was supposedly built by Modulok, and so it was the same idea. You had a bunch of different pieces that you would combine together to make a figure. But anyway, I'm going to throw some pictures on the screen that people can see.
Oh, those are cool.
Stop. Now, a lot of these pictures, by the way, I got off of eBay. Most of them I got off eBay. Otherwise, I'll note on there where they came from. A couple of them from, like, He-Man World. But, you know, going to a place like eBay, you know, people are trying to sell their stuff. They throw the pictures up there, so I just assume it's public domain. So you might see, if you're selling yours on eBay, maybe yours is spotlighted here.
If so,
but see, like, look at like this right here. This version of Modulok. That's one of the things we built.
huh? And then there's a single connector piece just sitting there.
Well, because that's from the auction. Because there was one leftover piece from what they were selling. So anyway, what are your thoughts here on Modulok?
Definitely a bit tough to get the things on. I guess you guys were just built stronger back in the day.
Well, yeah, and that was also the idea that over time you're going to put them on, take them off, put them on, take them off, and they wanted them to hold up, so they wouldn't wear down over time. And that's similar to the type of connectors that they actually had on the figures. You could pop off arms and pop them onto other figures. They had a very similar type of connector that was actually built in. That was that same type of nub that would snap into place.
Are you sure this one will even go on?
Yeah.
You sure?
Here, let me see it.
Alright, go.
Oh, well, not this one. Yeah, see? Right.
Cool, that's not the one I wanted though.
Too bad. So anyway, so like I said, I know you like to have toys, like we talked about the superhero mashers last week and stuff like that. This is a similar idea from earlier on, obviously. This is from 1985. In 1985, you were negative 20 years old. So would you see yourself playing with a figure like this?
If I was younger, yeah.
Well, I tell you what. Sometime later, I'll pull out the multi-bot. The multi-bot that I have is from Classics, from the Classics line. So it is built a little differently. But here, let's go ahead and just slide all these pieces back in.
All right. Well, here's my beautiful creation. Look at him.
And his gun even comes apart. You can pull apart the gun into 2 pieces and put it into each of his hands. So anyway, Modulok was one of my favorite characters as a kid growing up. And it's one of those things where sometimes you'll see an auction or you'll be at a comic book convention or something and you'll see one that just has a few pieces. I actually have more random pieces to Modulok laying around because if you watch the show, you probably noticed some points in the background there have been various combinations of a Modulok back there. That is not from this set. That's actually from a different set. So I have purchased different pieces at different times, and so you can always combine them and build crazier,
And
bigger
just
things.
get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Bigger and bigger and bigger, that's right.
Our goal is to create the ultimate Modulok. Please send all of the Modulok pieces you have to us. You will not get paid for them nor credited.
No, we'll give credit. If someone sends in some Modulok pieces, we'll give you a shout out. If you've got an arm and a connector sitting there that you're not using. All right, next up, this is going to be the first of the MYP or 2000X line. This is known as Fire Armor Skeletor.
Oh.
And this, I couldn't find a commercial or anything for this one, but I actually happen to have one of these. When we took a road trip to Ohio a couple years ago, I picked one up at a comic shop, and that is Fire Armor Skeletor.
I like his staff.
You want to open them up?
You sure?
Yeah.
Alright, you go.
Oh, you want me to do it?
Yeah, because I'll rip the paper. I'll rip the box.
Oh, I figure you'll rip the box.
Alright,
I figured we would just take the figure out to play with.
cool. Look away, collectors. Hey, the toy's broken.
No, let's see. He's got a missile that shoots out of the end of his, out of the end of his staff there.
Which would be what I was looking at. I thought was cool.
And he's got swords and non-removable armor.
Ooh, this bottom piece is very loose. Spins.
Sure does. Let's shoot his missile. Oh. Or you didn't click it in.
Yeah, I didn't want to shoot it.
There it goes.
That hit him right in the chest.
Alright. So this is a version of his Havoc staff. I bought this basically because I love bizarre decos of characters, and I remember seeing this. He's just loose.
Yeah.
Yeah. And whenever I see like bizarre decos of characters and weird, alternate versions of them, I love looking at those and picking them up. And so this is one of those things that I desperately wanted to have just because of how crazy it looks. And these flame pieces are actually his swords, so they can come off and go in his hands to be a weapon as well.
Well, I thought he had the staff.
Well, he also has the staff. Oh, try the other hand.
How can you have a staff and 2 swords? One of those will be left behind.
If you're awesome like Skeletor, you can just have whatever weapons you need.
You say that like Skeletor's disco.
We'll get to that. Alright, so Fire Armor Skeletor, I always referred to this line as 2000X. This started in the early 2000s with the second generation, well I guess third generation cartoon show. Because you had New Adventures of He-Man and then you had this Masters of the Universe. And I personally really liked the cartoon. I was kind of on the toys overall because of their lankiness. Again, always have been a big fan of the 5.5 figures, and these were taller and skinnier, but they were still pretty cool. And I don't know if you remember when you were little.
No.
But we had a Battle Armor He-Man and Skeletor that would talk, press the button, and they'd make noise, and you played with those a lot when you were a little kid.
No clue.
So much so that you pretty much destroyed them.
Yeah, no clue. You're welcome, by the way.
Yeah, thanks. So anyway, Fire Armor Skeletor was number 9 on the list.
If this guy's only number 9, then I'm excited to see what other cool things are coming.
Actually, they're kind of weirder at the top, and they get more basic as we go down. So that might be a little disappointing for you as far as you're concerned. But yeah, I really like the design on this guy.
I like
really
his
cool.
I like his like bony fingers. Like they almost look like bones, just like flesh wrapped around it.
And I like his face. How it's that. It really is a wicked looking skull. Like
Yeah.
it really is a neat looking character.
Well, I guess you need to grab a second one and take off the helmet.
The helmet's rubber, does it? No, it doesn't want to come off.
Here, I'll try.
No. All right, let's go to number 8. Number 8 is Faker from the original Vintage line, and we do have a commercial for him.
He looks
Just set this down.
He looks sick.
So let's take a look at the commercial for Faker.
I, Skeletor, created you to destroy He-Man.
You did?
You're Faker. You look like He-Man, only you're evil.
Evil.
He-Man, He-Man!
Action figures sold separately.
He-Man, He-Man.
You're not He-Man, you're Faker.
Faker has all the power.
Oh yeah? Watch this power. Only He-Man has all the power in the universe.
Faker, He-Man, and Skeletor from the Masters of the Universe collection, each sold separately from Mattel.
Now, Faker, as you can probably imagine from the name, he's the fake He-Man.
Oh, that's where the name comes from. Ah.
And I actually put this on my list of the worst figures of the vintage line that we did in episode 2 of the 2020 series, because he's supposed to trick people into thinking that he's He-Man, but he's blue with orange armor instead of being flesh-colored with gray armor. I think people would look at that and go, there's something wrong. That's not actually He-Man.
I mean, I don't know. He looks pretty convincing. You know, he's just got to put on, like, what is it, a pink shirt? And he looks fine, you know, just a bit under the weather.
Are you a little cold today, He-Man? Looking a little blue. Maybe you're sad.
He's blue, da-boo-dee.
And he does have the sticker on his chest, which is supposed to be like electronics. And that's like the best they could do for having some sort of electronics to show that he's a robot, is they put a sticker. And the sticker actually looked like 2 reels of magnetic tape running on his chest. I'm not sure exactly how that was supposed to work out.
It's because the tape sticks to him and makes him move.
I don't know. Anyway, I was kind of surprised to see how high. I like the look. Like, as I said before, I like redecos of characters. I do like funky looking armor, and I like recolored versions of characters. So for this, as a, what did you just knock off?
Pliers. They got stuck in
Right,
my
stop.
shirt.
Just leave them. So for basically a redecoed He-Man, like, of course I like the figure, just the idea of it being that it's somehow this undercover robot just seemed kind of dumb to me. But again, I like funky colors, I like redecos, so I always did like Faker. I just thought it was really kind of a dumb idea as far as a special thing for a toy.
What they should have done is do what DC did with the Joker that one time and make him wear like a flesh mask. So he pretended to be. Is that not what Joker did? Did he wear a face at one point?
That was his own face.
Was it?
He cut his own face off and then wore it as a mask. Yeah.
Well, that just seems impractical.
There's probably easier ways but he wanted to make a statement, you know? He wanted to make a statement. All right. Number 7, this is going to be actually the only Classics figure that made it on the list. Which, again, like I said, surprised me because so many people went nuts for the Classics line. But this is for Classics He-Man. And I actually have a little bit of footage from a video that was done a long time ago, taking a look at the Classics line as it was coming out. We have Pixel Dan and Duvall talking about the Classics version of He-Man.
But when I got the reissue, I really saw the difference.
Yeah.
Like, I like that they got rid of the paint on his face,
the
like
muted,
the red.
yeah, he had like rouge on his cheeks, and
it just looks, he looks better overall.
Yeah, he does look a much better figure. The only thing I'm still upset with is the loincloth. It's
a lot more flexible than it used to be.
It is, but
the original one wasn't completely stiff. You got to remember that. The first couple, like King Grayskull and He-Man and Beastman, all had those really stiff loincloths. They didn't move at all.
Really worried mine's not going to sit on Battlecat at all.
Battlecat. Well, I think Battlecat's saddle is formed for it, so you should be okay.
That's good.
Well, we'll see. Hopefully we'll have that soon.
Yes, soon.
I can review that.
Alright, so as you can see, the Classics figures were a lot bigger, and just, as an example, this figure here, which we'll talk about in a minute, this is the size of the Classics figure. So compared to, say, the vintage style figure, you can see that they're a lot bigger, they're a lot beefier.
I like this one better.
They have a lot more articulation, but Classics He-Man was the only one that actually made it on the list. Now, like I said, at the beginning when we started, I think maybe that's because our viewers have skewed more towards people who are more nostalgic for the original line, fans of that 5.5 vintage line, more than the people who are the modern day collectors looking for, like I said, the latest, greatest figures coming out, that were going gaga for those Classics. But the Classics figures, another thing with the Classics figures is when I was talking several episodes ago about the figures getting more and more expensive. The Classics figures were the ones that were costing $30 for people to buy, and I had a hard time justifying $30 plus shipping. Now I think they started at 20, and then they were 25, and then they were 28, and then they were 30, and they maybe even went even higher as it went on. But you paid shipping and tax and everything else, and so sometimes you were paying upwards of $35, $40 once everything was said and done to get it to show up at your door, and they were only available online. So that made it really tough for me to justify buying a lot of these figures. Now, I did buy a handful of them, and some of them at one time showed up at Big Lots. Big Lots somehow worked out some deal with Mattel. Mattel had a bunch of leftover stock. Like when they ship them out, they'll make, say they have orders for 100,000. So they'll make 100, and they'll make 100,000, and then they'll make another batch of like 500 or 600. And then that way, if there's a problem with, people getting crushed in the mail, or they get it and it, like the glue didn't stick or something, so the body is in two pieces or something, and they're like, hey, my figure's broken, they have a backup one they can send to them for quality purposes. So Big Lots made some sort of deal with Mattel to get a whole bunch of these figures in their store, and they were selling them at $10. Ooh. So I went in and bought a whole bunch of them when they were $10, because $10 I could justify.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That was a much better deal. But it was harder as time went on, and as they got more and more expensive. I just couldn't justify buying them.
I actually really like this one.
But being big and beefy, as you can see here, these are from HeManWorld.org. The figure, it had a lot more articulation. That's one of the reasons why people liked it. So you could do a lot more posability with it, and it was, again, it was a large figure. It took a lot of prominence on your shelf. It was, it was a nice looking figure. I mean, these are nice looking action figures. Just for me, the price it wasn't justified. I just couldn't do it. But they are neat. So when you can find them at a discount, or sometimes at a comic book convention, you would find guys selling them, and they were selling them for $15 a piece or something like that, because they had ordered a whole bunch and then had a whole bunch left over. So you had to kind of pick from the leftovers after a year or so, but sometimes you could find them cheaper, and so that was something to keep in mind. All right, so like I said, that's the only Classics that actually made it onto the list. So you may be wondering, you've seen some other Classics sitting up here. Why are they up here? Well, that's going to go with the next one, and that is my homeboy, Disco Skeletor. And
only number 6.
And he's number 6, and I'm going to show you a clip. I did a whole episode several years ago when everybody else went to San Diego Comic-Con. I stayed behind while they all went to the Comic-Con. And I had to run Kill and Store, and I did a whole episode of That New Toy Smell by myself, so I made it all about Disco Skeletor. And here is a clip from that episode. This is episode 51. It's titled Dirt's Disco Ditty. So if you want to watch the whole episode, you can find it on the channel, but otherwise, here's a clip from that show.
I can still remember what it was like the first time I ever saw Disco Skeletor.
What the hell is this?
I love it so much. It
I love Disco Skeletor.
I can tell.
So here is a Disco Skeletor here. And I tell you what, I actually bought this one. It's kind of, you can see the plastic on the bubble is kind of yellowed and whatever. So why don't you go ahead and open that one up?
Really?
Yep.
I felt the spider web on it.
It's been sitting in the basement for a while.
That's actually very yellow.
Yeah. Right, just throw that over there. So, there's been no real explanation as to why Disco Skeletor exists.
Really?
Yeah. It was one of these things where at some point they just decided to recolor Skeletor and put him on the market, and they colored him like this, and nobody really knows why. Now the Power Swords in the original toy line, the idea was that He-Man came with a Power Sword and Skeletor came with a Power Sword, and they were fighting for control, and if you got both of them, you could combine them together to make one super powerful sword.
It looks like two teeth.
Let's see, how does this go? Oh, it goes this way. Is that right? No, it goes this way. Yeah, okay. So then you would have this sword that would combine together, and then there's actually a spot here in his back where you can...
And then you can make him punch, I guess.
Yeah. So it's called an action feature.
Ah.
And in this line, the action feature here was that it had punch motion or stabby.
Ooh.
So if you put the sword in his hand...
If you put the sword in his hand.
If you can... I'm going to drop that. It's easier to do with one sword. But you put the sword in his hand, and then you can bring it in and stabby, 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 stabby. So, I love Disco Skeletor. I love Disco Skeletor so much that I actually had this vintage version of Skeletor that I took a regular Skeletor, and Pixel Dan actually painted it to look like Disco Skeletor to be part of the collection. So this is the original vintage Disco Skeletor. You can still find a post about this on the forums at heman.org if you look that up. Let's see, some of the other ones that we have here. This is the one, this one was done by intern Rick. I bought a Classics Skeletor, and I had it painted to be a Disco one to add to the Disco Skeletor collection. And you can see he added Disco to the front, and Disco Skeletor likes to partay written on the back. So there was that. Then they did a special pack based off that Cartoon Network show, Robot Chicken, where they had a toothless Skeletor in one of the episodes. And so I split a 2-pack with somebody, and I got the toothless Skeletor, and intern Rick made this one into a Disco Skeletor as well. And you can see the color is a little different.
Yeah.
But it's the same basic idea behind it.
That one has a shinier chest.
Yeah. So that's a Disco toothless, or a toothless Disco Skeletor.
So how many different Disco Skeletors are there?
I have a bunch. And then this one was made by Jumpin' Joe Amato. Joe Amato Custom Creations. He took the Intergalactic Skeletor and made it into a disco from New Adventures of He-Man. Made a whole new piece of paper in there for Disco Skeletor and a whole new card back.
Yeah.
With Disco Skeletor and also some of his other customs with his own little logo there at the bottom. And so he made...
he basically just remade a whole new box and character.
Yeah, so I mean, this is the type of quality you get from Joe Amato Custom Creations. I'll give him a plug. He does co-host the Fans of Power podcast, which I used to do, but I got Nathan Kennedy to take my spot, so I got my evenings back on Sunday nights when they record. That's the show I used to do on Sundays. You remember dinner time? It was always they were trying to record that show. So anyway, Joe Amato did that one. Intern Rick did those two. Pixel Dan did this one. But it all goes back to this original figure. And I've got two more of these down in the basement in the package in these like collector's cases to keep them safe. That's why I let you open this one. I bought it. It was yellowed and whatever, and I figured it was cheap. So that was part of the reason why I bought it, so that we could open it and have another one. But I've got like two more of these loose Disco Skeletors around the house. In different spots. I love this. I mean, this is the most random.
Yeah, I mean, I like Disco Skeletor too, but then again, I'm also the guy who likes the funny, wacky stuff, like the fire armor.
Yeah, and like I said, the fire armor, it's one of those that I had just randomly bought. I also have the battle armor Skeletor from this line, and part of the plan was that eventually I would get fire armor Skeletor made disco.
Oh, well, so, hey, you've got...
Yeah, so now that he's opened, I can have that done. So I'll have somebody do a disco custom on that one. All right, so that was number 6. Number 5 is Man-at-Arms, and we've got a commercial. Man-at-Arms was never the focus of a commercial, but I found a foreign language commercial. Top Toys was the distributor in... Was it Argentina, I think? And they made a commercial which features Man-at-Arms. I had never seen this until I started researching for this episode, but I thought this commercial was fantastic, so I want to go ahead and share it here.
Llegaron los juguetes más valientes del universo, Masters of the Universe.
¡Atrévete, Esqueleto! ¡Ayúdame, He-Man!
He-Man, He-Man.
¡Venceremos, He-Man!
La leyenda de He-Man y Skeletor continúa con apasionantes aventuras para coleccionar. Masters of the Universe, el eterno juego del bien contra el mal, son de Top Toys.
No, I'm pretty sure that would just feature He-Man and Skeletor again.
No, Man-at-Arms was in there. He was the one that got beat up. So he was the chump that got beat up. Now, I used to have a Man-at-Arms. I don't know what happened to it. It might be in one of the boxes down in the basement, or it might be something that was in the flood stuff that we had to toss out. But I do have the re-release, if you can grab it there. This one is part of the new line from Super 7, redoing the vintage figures. And there's one big difference in between the vintage figure and that one. Can you spot it?
This one has a mustache.
That's right. In the cartoon, he had a mustache, but the action figure never had a mustache, and so it was one of those things that people always wish the original one had a mustache. So they released this one, which is a little more cartoon accurate, and it has the mustache in it. But there is something, I have always enjoyed his look, that is that orange and green. Those are colors that you don't normally see put together.
Unless it's on a villain. Then you see it pretty often.
Maybe. But, I mean, he is a neat figure. One of the things about the Masters of the Universe line, too, especially in the early days, I remember Man-at-Arms was one that stood out significantly, was the heads were squishy. So you could take the heads and you could press on them and squish them down, and he had the perfect face for that because of all the wrinkles from his mouth and his cheeks and everything. And I'll show you what I mean here in a little bit. When we get to another figure, I'll show you what I'm talking about. But Man-at-Arms is a figure that has a lot of nostalgia. I think a lot of people, he was probably one of the first ones they got. He was in the, I believe, the original release, right? The original wave of figures. And so the kids who got these, we're adults now, but when we were kids, and these came out, you probably had a He-Man, a Skeletor, a Beast-Man, and a Man-at-Arms. Those were kind of like the main ones that everybody in my neighborhood seemed to have. And so I think that's why he's so high up on the list.
I just don't know what he uses to fight with. Is that like a goblet that has like the top?
It's a
covered?
mace. It's a mace. So the idea is that's a big, heavy ball. So you're like hitting somebody with the big, heavy end of this thing on a stick.
So it's like a baseball bat.
So yeah, in the medieval times, those would actually have spikes on them to be deadly to crack your skull.
Well, I know they had, and then they were on a chain and they would swing around. Yeah. All right.
So yeah, that's the weapon that he has. I think in here they made it. Yeah, they made it much bigger.
Yeah.
So it's much more of a weapon in this version as opposed to that one. And the thing, like I said, I've got a Man-at-Arms somewhere. I just couldn't find him to record this episode. But anyway, that commercial I thought was pretty sweet. All right, so that was number 5. So now we're going down to number 4, and number 4 is Man-E-Faces. This is one again I had put on my kind of dumb characters list because his gimmick was he had 3 faces inside his helmet, and you would twist the thing at the top, and it could change between a man, a monster, or a robot. And like I had this, of course, as a kid. It was a neat figure. I actually had 2 of these somehow. I ended up with as a kid. Maybe I got one for Christmas and one for a birthday or something. I don't remember what happened.
I've had that before.
Yeah, I know you're familiar with that. So, I mean, it's a character I know, but the idea that it's this dial on his head, I always wondered, like, what's stopping someone from just like walking up behind him when he's not paying attention and going boop and putting him into monster mode, and then like he's stuck in a monster mode and he can't get out of monster mode. Because that was the idea with the character, is that when it would switch, then he was kind of like stuck into there until he could find a way out.
So then do like all 3 of the heads, do they have to like eat separately? I guess aside from the robot? Or like if the robot is out and he gets water, does only the robot like get electrocuted and go nuts?
In the cartoon, the way they did it was he was an actor, and so he would switch heads as different characters. But in the comic that came with it, because there was a little mini comic in the back, in the comic it was more like he would be like possessed by the evil, and the evil would turn him into the monster, and he'd be on a rampage like the Hulk until they could find a way to turn him back. And then if he needed like extra strength and stuff, he would become the robot, and he would have the extra abilities of the robot.
So that brings like, let's say he's in robot mode and he goes to take a drink of water and it spills all over his face and electrocutes him. Does he then switch back to human or monster?
Or is he just dead?
Or does, like, just in normal mode if he gets water on him? Because the robot's still there.
Alright, so I did find a commercial specifically for Man-E-Faces, so let's take a look at this.
Who are you?
I'm Man-E-Faces with the power to change from man to robot to monster.
Oh, no.
He-Man, He-Man.
He-Man sold separately.
Hi, old friend. Hi.
He-Man, he's your friend?
Friend and ally. He's just kind of weird sometimes.
Oh, in specially marked packages, Man-E-Faces comes with 5 extra weapons. He-Man and Man-E-Faces each sold separately. Part of the Masters of the Universe collection. From Mattel.
So one thing I've noticed is that they all have man in their name.
There's a lot of manliness
it's just
in this toy line.
The rest of Mega Man, because they all have like type man. I was trying to think of the word and just instantly said
well, it's He-Man, so there's a lot of man, Merman, and Beast-Man.
Again, He-Man. That's just the same thing.
But anyway, I know one of them I had came with the bonus pack and had a bunch of extra weapons in it, which was great to have. Because weapons would tend to get lost pretty easily at my house.
And they're also cool.
But anyway, so Man-E-Faces, yeah, he's number 4 on the list. A lot of people really like Man-E-Faces, and that was one, if you remember when I made the video, someone left a comment on the video that was like, don't talk about my boy Man-E-Faces that way. So yeah, Man-E-Faces is a beloved character, and I got some hate for putting him on that worst figure list.
He does look kind of dumb, though.
Alright, number 3 is Triclops. Now, you know what a Cyclops is, right?
Yes, and I assume a Triclops has 3 eyes.
So yeah, he has 3. So he's got a good good guy eye, and then he's got this bad guy eye, and then he's got this like monster dark red demon eye.
Okay, so I can tell that they really like the idea of 3 personalities in one character.
Yeah, it does seem very similar to Man-E-Faces in that way. Now, he was a character, again, I got one of these as a kid. I loved him. There was something about his look was completely different. Again, he's got the green and orange, like Man-at-Arms, which you don't see a lot, but his armor was just so original and so weird looking with the flared shoulder stuff, just kind of funky. Also, his eyes, the way they built the head was they sculpted the mouthpiece, but they didn't sculpt anything up here. So it was completely flat. So if you took the visor thing and tried to push it up to see his face underneath, there was no face. It was like blank face.
Slender Man.
Which made him kind of creepy. And he did have a couple different variations on his face over time. So you can see here, it's more of kind of like this angry grimace, where he's like he just smelled something bad. And then here, they re-sculpt it, where it's much more, the bottom lip is really stuck out. Looks more like he just crashed into a manure truck and like 200 pounds of manure fell in, like Back to the Future or something, and he's just sitting there like, alright, what do I do now?
What?
Maybe it's just me, I don't know. And then his original one was just kind of, I mean, he's still kind of like snarling a little bit, but it wasn't as crazy as the others. Now again, he is one that did not have his own commercial, but he did show up in the Moss Man commercial, and you did see him in a group shot. We've got some footage of that, so here, let's take a look at that. So Triclops didn't get a lot of love as far as the advertising went. He did come with a really cool, super long sword, and that was one thing that I thought was weird in the commercials. They didn't show him holding any of the weapons. So He-Man wasn't holding his sword. Skeletor, I think, maybe had the Havoc staff out. No, I don't think. No, guess not. Nope, he didn't. So no weapons. None of them were showing their weapons, and his thing was he's a swordsman. That's the idea of his characters. He's a swordsman with this long sword. In the commercial, they don't even let him hold the sword.
He's just an Eye Man now.
So, but anyway, again, he's a really unique looking figure. The idea of the 3 eyes sliding around, I thought was pretty cool. And so I have always liked the figure, and like I said, he was one of the ones that I had as a kid. All right, now we're getting up to number 2. You can probably take a guess. If there's only 2 spots left, and you're thinking of all Masters of the Universe, who's going to be number 1 and number 2?
Well, I think the terrorist guy.
No, Blast Attack is not on there. Number 2 is actually the bad guy, Skeletor. Ooh. For some reason, he should be number 1.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah. Really. I mean, go Team Skeletor.
Skeletor's cool.
But when I was looking through, first of all, I found this is what is reported to be the very first commercial for Masters of the Universe that was put out, and so of course it features He-Man and Skeletor. So let's take a look at this real quick.
Who's the big guy with the muscles?
He's He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe. Skeletor is his enemy.
He-Man. Here's He-Man, Skeletor, and Castle Grayskull. You have to put the castle together.
You're doomed, He-Man.
Oh, yeah? Watch this action, Dad. He-Man. Now I have the power.
He-Man and Skeletor each sold separately. Castle Grayskull also sold separately from the Masters of the Universe collection from Mattel.
There's a lot of Mattel figures on here. I wonder what that's about.
I wonder why they get named so often. So, my original Skeletor is right here. This is my original one as a kid that got turned into this vintage disco Skeletor by Pixel Dan years ago. But I do have sitting here, like I said, I love the funky other versions. So there was this one. Dragon Blast. The idea was you would fill up his backpack with water, and you'd press down on the head, and it would squirt. It's like a little spray bottle.
Oh, cool. Do you have water?
No, don't put water in it. It doesn't do it anymore. We have Terror Claws Skeletor, or as I like to say, Purple Bikini Top Skeletor. That has these big claws, and the idea was you would twist him and he would scrape. And then we do have the new version of a vintage Skeletor done by Super 7, and this is the more cartoon accurate version. So you can take a look, basically, like if you can imagine like this head on that body, that's, you know, more of what Skeletor would have looked like. So you can get an idea of what they were like. But Skeletor, of course, one of the things in the original version of Skeletor, I'll throw up this picture that you can look at, and I do remember this from when I was a kid. His boots. They only painted the front half of his boots, which I always thought was kind of funky.
I mean, sure. I mean, you as a kid, you're not really going to try and, like, look at his feet, but...
It just always seemed kind of weird to me, but I do remember that. Here's a shot of him in the package in all his glory. And I think this is actually from a later release, maybe, because his feet are painted all the way around.
The good news, his feet are painted all the way around on this one, too.
Oh, yeah, okay. Let's imagine that. Now, what I showed a minute ago was what is believed to be the first commercial. This is believed to be one of the last of the Masters of the Universe commercials. And let's see if you can notice kind of a subtle difference in the marketing and the way they were selling the figures at this point.
Kind of a subtle?
Call it Master Power. Some guys got it, some guys don't. He-Man's got it in Grayskull Castle. But keeping it is a powerful hassle. Skeletor wants the castle too, with jawbridge, lasers, trapdoor. Shoot, wouldn't you? Maybe he'll get it, maybe he won't. It's Master Power. Some guys got it, some guys don't. Castle Grayskull from the Masters of the Universe collection. You put it together. Action figures each sold separately. From Mattel. Got it?
So, I did notice a subtle difference. Another thing I noticed is, how come in these commercials, the kid who gets their toy knocked down falls down with them? Like, if you're a kid in real life, you're going to argue against that and fight against it as much as you can because you want to win.
Right, okay, so when I played with them, I would always, you know, have the type of thing where I was, like, telling a story, right?
Yeah.
And you'd have the guys fight, and, you know, it's like, I'm going to take over Castle Grayskull. And then He-Man's like, no, you're not. And then you throw a punch, and you do a kick, and you do a whatever, and you have them run around, and you do the stuff. I had friends who lived 2 houses down. 3 boys. There was a boy a year younger than me, one that was like 2 or 3 years younger than me, and one that was like 5 or 6 years younger than me. The way they would play with He-Man figures is you would hold one, and I would hold one, and they would go, go! And then they would try to grab the other one out of the other person's hand, and that's how they would play. And you would basically try to rip the figure out of the other person's hand. If you could rip it out of his hand, then you won the battle. That's how they would play with Masters of the Universe. And to me, that was, like, I understand it, it's 3 boys. So they're going to fight a bunch and, you know, do a lot of arguing and whatever. But to me, that was always like, the first time I went over there and I was like, oh, let's play He-Man. And they were like, yeah. And then they just like grab and start pulling. I'm like, what are you guys doing? But that was how they did it. So,
and hey, they're your toys. You can play any way you want, except you are objectively wrong.
You are wrong, but I will fight for your right to play with your toy however you see fit. All right. So now, knowing that Skeletor made number 2. Who do you think made number 1?
The other Man-at-Arms character.
No, of course it is the original vintage He-Man. I actually thought Classics He-Man would be number 1 and Vintage He-Man would be further down on the list. But as it turns out, like I said, our demographics must skew older for people who are more nostalgic as opposed to people who are buying all the new stuff coming out. And so Vintage He-Man, of course, became number 1 on our list. Here is a commercial. This is the commercial I remember from when I was a kid for He-Man toys that features He-Man versus Skeletor.
What do we have here?
It's Castle Grayskull. And it's mine. Not so fast, Beastman. He-Man!
You can pit He-Man against Beastman, playing for the power of Castle Grayskull. You have to put the castle together.
Beastman's escaping.
The throne, Dad. Dad, you saved the castle.
Castle Grayskull from the Masters of the Universe collection. He-Man and Beastman, each sold separately, from Mattel.
There's Mattel again.
Alright, so now He-Man, when he originally came, he had the mini-comic, he had the sword, the shield, and the battle axe. Mine, sadly, at this point, it only remains with the shield. The original sword and battle axe are long gone. This is also suffering from one of the things that happens with Masters of the Universe figures, the legs. There's a little piece of rubber that connects the legs on there, and they tend to, after time, twist and lose a lot of their strength, and it's hard to get them to stand on their own anymore because they lose that stiffness.
Very flexible, though. I'll give them that.
Yeah, not supposed to be, though. Now, here's one thing I want to show you, and we'll get a close-up of this with an alternate camera. The face being squishy. All right, now I want you to watch. It looks like He-Man, and now it looks like Alfred E. Newman from Mad Magazine.
I don't know who that is.
The What Me Worry guy from Mad Magazine.
I don't know who that is.
So the heads all had that thing, and Man-at-Arms, I remember, was one of the loosest of all the ones I had that would do that. Now here he looks like, I don't know, to me he always looks like a lady with too much makeup on.
Yeah,
this way.
Yeah, I can say that, yeah.
But then, yes, squeezing it down like this, just, yeah.
And now he looks better.
With your thumb over the front? Yeah, so that is vintage He-Man, of the original He-Man figure, with his loose legs and everything. And they do make kits nowadays. You can fix those on the legs. People sell different types of kits and different bands that you can use to fix them, which is something that I'll probably do at some point. I'll have to get a replacement, sword and battle axe at some point. But this is my He-Man in all his broken down glory after all of these years.
So who's your number one?
Who's my number one?
Not a repainted figure, an official figure.
I don't know. It's one of those things that every 6 months when you ask me, my list would probably change a little bit depending on what I've been playing with lately and stuff like that. But I will say some of the ones that I kind of wish had made the list and didn't. I'd say Trapjaw. I always liked Trapjaw. He's one that I kind of wish was on here.
He's like the blue cat guy, right?
The blue cat guy.
Is that not?
Oh yeah, because I had the reaction figure of him.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Well, and he had his jaw was actually on a spring. You can open it up and close it on the original figure as a bonus.
And I'm assuming that spring is all rusted and broken now.
Probably. And then the other figure I was going to mention, I forgot because you interrupted me, and I forgot what I was going to say.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so thanks a lot for that.
I actually really like this one. I just like the fire.
Oh, the other character the other figure I had as a kid that I really liked, and I'm kind of surprised didn't make it on here, was Buzz-Off. Buzz-Off did get some votes. People did like the figure, and he did place, later in the list. He just didn't make the top 10.
Top 20 maybe? Top 30?
Yeah, probably top 20. But Buzz-Off was one, you can guess by the name Buzz-Off. He was part B. Yeah, and so his helmet had like the big BI things on it, and then he had wings that came out. His chest was black and yellow bands on it like a bee. So Buzz-Off was one that I had as a kid that I always really liked.
Can we just talk about bees for the next 20 minutes?
No. And also, I really like the battle armor versions of them. And in fact, battle armor, I had a battle armor. Is he up here? He is up here. From the Classics line, I had a custom made, if I can get this down without knocking everything over, Battle Armor Disco He-Man, which we'll get a close-up shot of that.
And he has the the break on his chest, which you're supposed to be able to flip over. Right.
So in the vintage line, the original line, that was spring loaded, and so you would smack, and the one line would pop up, and you'd smack again, and a second line would pop up, and then you could spin it back so there was no damage. And then in the new ones, in the classics line, like this one is, and with the Masters of the WWE universe, the wrestling ones, they're set up the same way, where you open up the chest and you switch the plate on the inside. But yeah, so this is the Disco Faker Battle Armor He-Man on there.
Quite a mouthful.
So
rolls right off the tongue.
Yeah, and he does have a lot of dust. And part of the problem is the paint that was used on him.
Sticky.
Yeah, it's still, even, like, this was painted 6 or 7 years ago, maybe?
Wow.
And so the paint is still kind of sticky. So it's whatever paint he used, just didn't, I don't know, it doesn't fully finish. It needs some sort of coating or something, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, so there is that. So yeah, that is the top 10 Masters of the Universe. Do any of these in particular stand out to you as... Now, do you like that more than, like, say, Modulok?
I wouldn't... This guy looks cooler. He's definitely someone I could see, like, having on my shelf in the background. But this is someone that... how's it go? Modulok is someone I can actually see myself playing with because of all the parts you can mix and match and everything like that.
Yeah.
Like, out of my favorites, it'd probably be Fire, Disco, Modulok, Skeletor, I don't know. I like the cool looking stuff. He-Man is not cool looking to me. He's just a buff guy.
Alright, so you have no loyalty to the original character?
No.
Alright, so that's the list, and again, this episode, this is the end of this chunk of episodes. We are going to do one more Video Game Losers coming out next Wednesday.
Do you want to say what it is?
Go ahead.
No, you.
Okay, it's going to be on A Hat in Time. We're going to be covering that, which is one of your favorite games of the last few years.
It's definitely top 5. So
we will have one more of that, and then we're going to take our sabbatical for a little while. I'm not sure exactly how long, but we will be back. I know in time at least for to do a Halloween episode, but we're going to end before Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving maybe might be the last one. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to work out, but we will be taking some time off. But in that time in between, we will do some other types of videos, but not necessarily a series like this, or we might do a mini series based on something a little more focused than just scattershot of random toys every week or random video game every week. Maybe focus in on something a little more specific and do a chunk of episodes focusing on something specific.
We've already announced what it is that we're thinking of doing that specific idea with.
Well, let's not say anything else. Let's just leave, because maybe it won't work out and we'll end up doing something else. Just
we're talking about hats.
So, it's time for the mailbag. And we're going to go here first. This episode, or this comment was left by Pop Culture Network, left this on the Doug Turner channel, and it says, "When did you get to be so handsome?" And that's a question that my mom asked me all the time.
Well, I think, you see, I get it from him, and he's not, so I don't understand where you exactly got that word from.
No, but see, that was the episode that I did on the Mega Constructs all by myself.
Ah, okay.
You weren't in that one.
Alright, so I don't really know where they got it from either then. I mean...
Swedish Dictator commented, last week we were talking about the discontinued toy lines, and I said I wanted more of those Trons.
Is that the real Swedish Dictator?
Yes, that is the real dictator who's the head of Sweden. Yeah.
Wow.
Glad to have you as a fan. But he added Tron toys! Which, by the way, is something that I shouted quite a bit whenever there were announcements having to do with Tron toys, or whenever we reviewed them on old episodes.
Tron toys! I love Tron! Tron!
Tron.
Tron 2.0.
Tron.
Tron!
Tron 2.0 for Tron. Tron.
Yes! And Tron toys! Just add Tron toys! Tron toys! Tron!
So that means he's a guy who's been watching these. Either he's been watching these for like a decade, or he's one of those weirdos that goes back and watches all the old episodes. I'm not sure which you are, but since you are a dictator, I'll let you take whatever credit for which one you want to be.
You just called like a large majority of your fans weirdos.
Is that That's fair, I think.
I mean, okay.
I'm a weirdo. You're a weirdo. They're probably all weirdos.
I'm weirder than you
are. Agreed. Let's see. Someone did ask on the last episode if I could re-upload the That New Toy Smell Flintstones episode, and unfortunately I cannot. As far as I know, unless one of you out there downloaded it and saved it somewhere, it is gone forever. That is one of those that is just gone. Let's see, and that was Starford Lee, by the way. So that Starford Lee was asking if we could do the Flintstones. Diggerman3 commented on last week's episode saying the original Tron by Tomy in 1982 had the orange and yellow Tron bikes. Later, NECA in 2002 made the blue and red Tron bikes, gave out new versions of the original figures but in cheap plastic. And I know that they did some reissues of the original figures, and if you watch the review we did on Tron Toys years and years ago, I re-upped it not too long ago on my personal channel, but you can also find it on the Pop Culture Network channel. That we did cover the fact that NECA released them, and they were virtually identical as far as the design. They were a little different, I think, mainly so that you could tell them apart. So if someone brought one in and said, hey, I've got the original, you could look at it and go, no, this is the reissue, just a little different in the way it was made. But I understand that reissues were done, but reissues are not really what I was talking about with these lines. What I was talking about was wanting new sculpts, new figures. They did a prototype of the tank from Tron that never became an actual toy because the line ended. I'd like to see that as an actual toy. I'd like to see one of the recognizers, one of those, U-shaped, upside-down U-shaped things that flies through the sky. I want to see one of those. I want to see, more figures of different characters and stuff like that. So that's really more of what I'm talking about with what I wanted from those. Now, Doug Turner posted on the Pop Culture Network channel, and he said, how did those hosts get to be so good looking? And that's a good question. How did we both get this time clearly he added you in.
Well, you see, I get it from him, and I don't understand where you got the word from for referring to him, so I'm not really sure what you mean by that, because it's not.
Branko Bear commented on the crosscode saying that this game looks interesting. He thought it looked like it might be a lot of fun. You played it.
Well, let me. So I played it for basically until dinner time after the stream. We started at 3, and then I guess I played for.
You played for like another 2 hours after the live stream.
And most of it was just grinding the last area because there's a boss fight coming right up after the big wilderness area. So I'm like, okay, I'll go try it out. Oh, he's level 10. I'm level 6. Sure. I finally get to level 10. I go to fight him. We think the fight is rigged so you can't lose?
No, so you can't win.
So you can't win? Sorry. So I spent a good 45 minutes attempting to fight over and over again, trying to beat it.
Screaming and slamming things.
I got frustrated and would go,
that counts, because you did it really loud.
That's not screaming.
You did it really loud, and it was super annoying.
Well, then you have to be in the room.
It didn't matter. You could be anywhere else in the house, and you'd hear you freaking out over that. So anyway,
I hate the grass hair man.
So as far as that goes, because the game continues. You lose the fight, but you can still play the game, and he wouldn't.
No,
he kept quitting and reloading his save and going back into the fight,
trying different strategies, using new abilities,
always failing. Because I don't think you're allowed to win in that fight.
Well, then I will level up. If I have to hit him, kill him one hit, I will. I need to beat him.
I don't think. I mean, try. I mean, if you can break the game, that's great.
Listen, I'm fully expecting a crash if I do win, because the game will just have no idea what to do if I do win, because they weren't expecting anyone to try.
All right, Bart D-Man 95 Lobby works under his real name, Anthony. I still don't know how to pronounce your name. Sabulars. He wrote in and said, I had never heard about Go-Go's Crazy Bones, Slugterra, or UB Funkies. Go-Go's Crazy Bones, I think, unless you were in the right window at the right age for those to come out, you probably wouldn't have run across those. Slugterra, though, was kind of big. It had video games. It had a cartoon. It was kind of a big deal for a while. UB Funkies, almost nobody knows about anymore. So
we're never going to talk about those.
The idea of DuckTales Hero Mashers is awesome. I do wish they'd do those someday, so he's with you on that. Regarding the mid-ad video ads, I wasn't able to watch that new Toy Smell episode on this channel. I was able to watch the whole thing on the Dirt channel. Internet connection here in the Philippines seems to be slow, and the ad sometimes slows down the YouTube viewing. YouTube just sent out an email a few days ago saying that they've revamped the way they do the mid-video ads. And so they're automatically inserting them into everybody's videos that have ads enabled. So now we have to go in
manually,
upload it, publish it, and then remember to go back in and then deselect the mid-video ads. Because even if we didn't have it selected, it's automatically going to be turned on by YouTube now, because they say that the mid-video ads are the ones that get the most attention, that advertisers pay the most for, and they're the ones that people want to buy more often, that they want to sell. So the most annoying ads that I'm trying to get rid of are the ones that they are automatically now inserting all over the place.
Except that's not even true, because with like the things most buy, because I get the same pre-video ads, mid-video ads, and video ads. I get they're the exact same things.
You mean they're the same ads?
Yeah.
Well, no, that's because the way we have your computer set up, we got rid of the ads being individualized.
Oh, okay.
So they're not tracking you. It's one of the settings that you can put up to stop Google from being able to track you and make ads specifically tailored to you.
Okay.
So it just plays the most generic one
that would explain why I keep getting Target ads.
Right. You're like, what? I get some sometimes that are like for feminine hygiene products, and I'm like, yeah, that's you got me. That is right on. You know who you're dealing with. Okay, he also added, regarding independent wrestling shows, have you by chance ever met Grimm of GTS Wrestling during your wrestling days? No. I only vaguely know that he's a guy that does independent wrestling, and he also does some toy review videos, but I've never really watched anything of his. I just know that he exists out there. A couple people have mentioned him.
You guys sound like you'd be best friends, wrestling and toy reviews.
Right. Well, and part of the thing is, I retired several years ago. Actually, I've retired twice and been brought back because people kept asking me to come back and do stuff. So I retired once in like 20... Let's see, when did I start? I started in 2002. I retired in 2008. I was asked to come back in 2010. I retired in 2011. I was asked to come back in 2013, and I retired again like 2 years ago, year and a half ago, 2 years ago, whatever. Yeah. So, after I retired the first time, I didn't travel anymore. And when I came back, when I came out of retirement, it was for specific shows. People would say specifically, will you come and do this show? So I would go and do that show. And then they would say like, hey, we want you for 6 months or whatever. So for the 6 months, I would go and do that specific show. But I was not doing the wrestling circuit. I wasn't traveling around. That was one of the big things, was traveling. I don't like to travel a whole lot. And especially for wrestling shows, the travel kills me, especially on a lot of those things. And so, you know, in the early days when I first started doing it, we did a lot of traveling when we were going to Missouri and to the Chicagoland area, and you know, down. Some guys were doing shows in Kentucky and Tennessee, and sometimes you just kind of tag along. Sometimes you'd hope to, you know, get thrown on the card and whatever. But then when I came back, it's like I was coming back for these specific dates that they wanted me for, and then never again. So like, especially the last time when you started going with me to shows, it was one show a month.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm only doing that one show a month for that one specific company because they asked me to come do their shows. But otherwise I stopped doing shows. So even though I was out of retirement, I wasn't, you know, doing all that stuff. So The only people I really crossed paths with a lot would have been back in the early 2002 to 2005 era. That's back when I was traveling a lot more, and that's when we ran into some of the guys like Jerry Lynn and Shark Boy and
Lava Girl.
No, there was no Lava Girl. In fact, he sued the movie studio, and I think he got some big check.
Seriously?
Yeah. In fact, I've got his Shark Boy action figure somewhere because they actually did a figure of him for Total Nonstop Action.
Wow. We can do a video on that.
And in fact, a friend of mine from New Midwest Wrestling here in Springfield did a match with Shark Boy and forgot the spot that they were supposed to do, and so like Shark Boy went to pick him up. To do a suplex or something, and he forgot what point they were at, and so he didn't lift up the way he was supposed to, and so Shark Boy got mad and just punched him dead in the face and said suplex and flipped him over. And so he hated Shark Boy for years, and everyone else, we thought it was hilarious. So when they had that Shark Boy action figure came out, we were all buying them, and we were like, yeah! And Shark Boy just punched everybody. It was fantastic. But anyway, the last thing here, he does say, I am looking forward to the UB Funkies full video. Because, again, he hadn't heard about it. He liked the idea of it. You showed him off on the show, and so he'd like to get some more information. Rider Origin, he wrote in, said, I'd love to see Muscle make a comeback with the actual Kaneko Man characters, especially if they'd make regular articulated figs alongside the rubber minis like they did with the Ultimate Muscle line. Nice list with atypical choices. Looking forward to watching more of that new toy smell. So, the first real video I did for that new toy smell back in 2008 was on the Ultimate Muscle figures. So that, if you go back to the flashback, or the rewind, I think it was, rewind episode 1, you can find that video on there. The thing with the Kaneko Man figures is that they have continued to make them forever in Japan. And I've got a bunch in the basement. A handful. I've got a handful in the basement. Different sizes that they made, different articulations. And they're cool figures. They never really stopped. They never fully went away over there. Here, we only got fully articulated figures for the Ultimate Muscle line, which is kind of sad because, one, the figures were awesome, and having more of them would have been great, obviously. And also, Ultimate Muscle was really super cool. It was a great cartoon, and I wish it had continued as well.
And I have no clue about what he's talking about.
You were very young. In fact, the show might have actually been over by the time you were born, but you only remember it probably because I had some toys.
Was it the guy with the blue shirt with the big lips and the mohawk?
Yes.
Okay, that's the only thing I remember.
Except it's actually a wrestling mask, so it wasn't big lips, it was this type of thing. And it was a fin on the wrestling mask.
That's all I remember of the character.
Yeah. So that's why it looked like he had big lips. It was actually a mouthpiece like this, cut into the thing. So.
Oh, my bad, sorry.
Alright, so that's going to do it. Again, this is the end of this chunk of episodes. We thank you guys for watching these 10 episodes of That New Toy Smell. We'll have the 10th... it will be the 10th?
Probably.
No, it'll be the 9th episode of Video Game Losers, because we had the off week because of Independence Day. So it'll be episode 9 of Video Game Losers. So 9 of those, 10 of this. But then we are, like I said, we are going to take a break, but we're not going away. We're just going to be trying some different things. We're also going to be working ahead on some of the stuff so that when we do come back for the next round of episodes for That New Toy Smell, it'll be a lot more of being able to sit down, piece together some of the background information stuff that we've researched and already pieced together, so the episodes come together hopefully a little bit more cleanly and succinctly, and on time. On time. And I would love to be able to have these done a day or so ahead of time so I can get them uploaded to YouTube, get them processed by YouTube, get everything taken care of, considering some of the problems that we've had.
Plus moving the ads.
Plus the ads, all that stuff. But we have had some problems. A couple weeks ago, I had the episode I had to upload a couple times to YouTube because they just wouldn't take the original upload for whatever reason. It just wouldn't process. Last week, I uploaded the video, and then it took 2 2.5 hours for YouTube to actually process it so I could publish it and go live. So it was ready to go at like 10 in the morning, and it wasn't until I think 1 in the afternoon or something that it actually got put out there because YouTube is just having all these weird issues. So again, we're going to work ahead a little bit because I want to get these things done and it kind of in the hopper and ready to upload so we can upload them in advance and have all that taken care of so you guys can wake up Saturday morning and tune in and boom, there is that new toy smell. Wednesday you get up, you get going, you're heading to work, whatever, boom, there is Video Game Losers.
We're like Saturday cartoons except a lot less funnier.
A lot less funnier. We are going to work on your homeschooling grammar because we're gonna have to deal with that. All right, guys. Anything else you want to say before we take off? Nope. Okay.
I like hats.
You like hats. I like toroidals. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.
Look at, what does the icon mean?
This?
Yeah.
It means that they make their subscription, 10 years.
What?
It makes their subscription public.
Huh.
So anybody who goes to his page will see that he subscribes to us and watches our videos.
10 years. So he is actually